She whispered softly. "This isn't safe." I replied, "Then let's make it worth the danger." I never expected the rain to catch me halfway up the old brick steps, but it did, so I was drenched, shoes squelching, heart thumping like a warning drum. That's when I saw her through the fogged window, standing in her living room, half turned toward the light, coffee cup clutched loosely in both hands, hair a little mussed from the wind, eyes sharper than I remembered. She didn't notice me at first. I lingered, because part of me couldn't move, and part of me didn't want to. The street smelled of wet asphalt and the faint tang of burnt toast from somewhere nearby. My chest tightened as I watched her shift her weight from one foot to the other, tracing the rim of her cup absent-mindedly. She looked alive, but not in a way that belonged to me, not yet. I cleared my throat, an abrupt sound that startled both of us. Her head snapped toward the door, and that quick, almost imperceptible intake of breath made my stomach twist. "You're early," she said, her voice soft, cautious, like she was trying to gauge whether I had permission to stay. Permission. Funny how much I craved it. I couldn't wait, I admitted, stepping inside, the warmth of her apartment wrapping around me. I noticed how the air smelled faintly of vanilla and old books, the soft hum of a radiator, and the way she lingered near the counter, just out of reach, like she wasn't sure if she wanted me to come closer. Her eyes caught mine, and for a second, nothing else existed. The streetlights through the blinds, the rain pattering, the faint music from the neighbors downstairs. She tilted her head slightly, hesitant, and I could see the flicker of something I couldn't name. Shame? Longing? Or maybe just recognition of the risk she was about to take, letting me inside it all. I found myself hovering near the kitchen, noticing her fingers brushing the edge of a mug, her lips parted slightly, her gaze darting away just when I wanted to study every line on her face. There was a strange electricity in that small space between us, a quiet kind of danger that made me want to lean in, press closer, hear the sound of her breathing. "This isn't safe," she whispered finally, and it wasn't a warning. It was a confession, fragile as spun glass, but heavy in the room, in the pause that followed. I caught her hand in the motion, almost by accident, and she didn't pull away, just let her fingers tremble against mine. "Then," I said, voice low, almost a murmur, "let's make it worth the danger." She blinked at me, a slow, deliberate motion, like she was weighing my words against everything she had learned to protect herself from. And then she did something small, but devastating. She leaned into my hand, just a fraction, enough for me to feel the warmth, enough to make me feel alive in a way I hadn't known I could. A clock ticked loudly somewhere behind us. Outside, the rain softened to a drizzle. I wanted to say something else, something clever, something that would convince her this wasn't a mistake. But all I could do was stand there, heart hammering, watching her and trying not to forget how her scent clung faintly to the air. And then, just as my courage began to stretch thin, the doorbell rang. We froze. She didn't move. I didn't move. The sound echoed too sharply in the quiet apartment, slicing through the moment we hadn't yet named. Her lips parted again, this time in a whisper I could barely hear. "Who could that be?" I swallowed, my pulse a drum in my ears. My hand still hovered near hers. And just like that, the fragile bubble between us cracked, and I knew. Whatever came next, nothing would be the same. The rain had slowed, leaving the street glistening like a dark mirror outside the windows. I lingered near the counter, pretending to examine the mugs, but really I was watching her. She moved with that careful precision that always struck me, like she measured every gesture before it. "Reach the air. You still drink it black?" I asked, trying for casualness, because anything else felt too much. She glanced at me, a small smile tugging at the corner of her lips. But her eyes, they were something else. "Restless. Always," she said softly, setting her cup down with deliberate care. "Helps me think." I wanted to ask what she was thinking, but I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I just leaned against the counter, feeling the warmth from the ceramic cups seep through my hands. My thoughts drifted, uninvited. How many times had she poured herself coffee alone, like she was waiting for someone who wouldn't come? How many nights had she replayed moments she couldn't undo? She caught me staring and didn't look away. "You're different from them," she said, almost a question, almost a statement. I swallowed, because I knew exactly what she meant, and it both thrilled and scared me. "Different how? Younger?" Reckless? Too much like she once knew she shouldn't trust? I forced a shrug, hoping to hide the tremor in my chest. I guess I just noticed things. Her laugh was quiet, almost fragile, and it made me ache. I had learned that sound didn't come often. The kind of people who'd lived long enough to carry regrets usually save their laughter for empty rooms. I shouldn't even, she murmured, biting her lip, and I saw it. The flicker of hesitation, a warning sign I wanted to ignore. She was divorced, that much I knew, but there was more, an unspoken history, children I wasn't supposed to meet, a world I wasn't meant to intrude upon. All things that made my pulse race and my brain yell at me to back away. But I couldn't. I want to, I said, my voice low. Too low, maybe. I don't know what it is exactly, but I trailed off, because saying it outright would have been a mistake. She turned slightly, and the light caught her eyes in a way that made the room shrink. You know, you're reckless, she whispered, and I felt it like a caress and a warning at the same time. We didn't speak for a moment. I reached out, almost involuntarily, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. She didn't flinch, but her hand hovered near mine, frozen, like she was trying to decide whether this small connection was worth the risk. My fingers lingered an inch from hers, and I felt every heartbeat echo in that tiny space between us. Then she laughed softly, almost to herself, and I caught it again. A memory, maybe, or a recognition of something we weren't supposed to share. And in that laugh, in that suspended, fragile breath, I knew we were both teetering on the edge of something forbidden but impossible to ignore. Outside, the drizzle tapped on the windows, a quiet reminder that the world existed beyond our bubble. But inside, for just a moment, nothing else mattered. Her eyes met mine, and we didn't speak. We didn't need to. The tension, the unspoken histories, the small, stolen brush of fingers, everything told a story we weren't ready to name aloud. And yet, somehow, it felt like home. I was about to say something, anything, that would make her smile again when the sound of a key rattling in the lock froze us both. Her posture stiffened. My stomach sank. That's early, I murmured, but she didn't answer right away. Her fingers tightened around the mug like it was a lifeline, her jaw set. I followed her gaze. The front door swung open, and a man stepped in, his presence filling the small apartment with an immediate sense of intrusion. Not a stranger. He had the same gentle laugh I remembered from the few times she'd mentioned him. But still, he wasn't me. "Ah," she said, voice tight. "You're home early." "I had to," he started, but she cut him off with a look sharp enough to make me flinch. I could feel my pulse thundering in my ears, and for a moment, I wondered if I should just turn and leave. But then I caught her glance, not at me, exactly, but at me, and it was enough. That flicker of something forbidden, something unspoken, made my chest tighten. He didn't notice it. Or maybe he did. Either way, he didn't see the way her hand trembled slightly when she put the mug down. "I'll just go change," he said, heading toward the bedroom. The door clicked shut, and the apartment fell back into that fragile, charged silence. I exhaled too loudly. She didn't look at me at first. Her eyes were fixed on the window, on the wet street outside, and I could sense the battle playing across her features, the pull of desire, the weight of responsibility. "I shouldn't be here," I said finally, even though every inch of me wanted to step closer. She let out a breath, almost a whisper. "I know." I moved a fraction closer. She didn't move away, but she didn't close the distance either. It was a delicate standoff, one we both knew we could lose in a heartbeat. I wanted to reach out, touch her cheek, but my fingers froze in midair. And then she leaned in. Just a little. So close I could feel the warmth radiating from her skin, smell the faint trace of vanilla and rain from earlier. I swallowed, trying to steady myself. My heart was a drumbeat, threatening to betray everything. And then she pulled back, just enough to keep the tension taut. "You can't," she said, voice trembling in that quiet way she only used when she was fighting herself. "I know," I whispered, though every nerve in me screamed to ignore it. "But I can't stop." A sudden laugh from the other room made us both start. I felt my chest tighten, a mix of guilt, fear, and the pull of wanting her closer. I wanted to tell her it didn't matter, that nothing else existed in that tiny apartment. But I didn't. We stayed like that, inches apart, neither moving, neither speaking, both aware that the next step could destroy everything. or create something neither of us could deny. And then my phone buzzed. A message from someone I wasn't supposed to hear from. I glanced at her. She looked at me. And in that look, half accusation, half invitation, I realized that whatever happened next, nothing would be simple. I hadn't meant to linger outside her apartment that night, but my legs wouldn't obey. The street was empty, slick with rain, the kind that made the city glow in reflections of neon and lamplight. I kept thinking about the way she had leaned toward me. Just a fraction, but it was enough to burn into my chest, enough to make me question everything I knew about restraint. The message on my phone sat unread. I didn't want to open it. Didn't want to know that someone else was intruding into the fragile tension we'd created. My thumb hovered over the screen. Every part of me screamed that reading it would change nothing, yet everything. I was halfway up the steps when I saw him. Her ex, or maybe not her ex, but someone she couldn't fully close the door on, standing by her car, talking quietly, his hand brushing hers in that familiar way. That little gesture, the casual intimacy, the easy laughter, it made my stomach twist. I wanted to walk away, to disappear, but my feet froze. She glanced up, and for a second, our eyes met. I could see the flicker of panic, or maybe guilt, in her gaze. She didn't look away, but she didn't move toward me either. My chest ached with a longing I couldn't name aloud, a mixture of desire and the fear that I was too late, that she could never belong to me in the way I wanted. I stepped closer, the sound of my boots on wet stone sharp in the quiet night. Her hand tightened around his sleeve, then released. She turned toward me, the distance between us charged like a live wire. I could feel her hesitation, the way she measured the risk in every breath, every glance. I began, but my voice faltered. She raised a finger, stopping me before the words fully formed. Her lips pressed together, just slightly, and in that half smile, half warning, I saw everything I feared and everything I wanted. Don't, she whispered, almost to herself. Not yet. My hands itched to reach for her, to pull her close and erase every boundary we'd struggled to maintain. I wanted to tell her I didn't care about the risk, about anyone else, about consequences. I wanted to tell her that the storm outside didn't compare to the one raging between us. Instead, I just stood there, heart hammering, every instinct screaming to move closer, to claim the moment before it slipped away. She shifted slightly, her gaze darting away to the street, then back to me, and I saw it. The conflict, the longing, the pull she couldn't resist. You shouldn't, she murmured again, her voice cracking just enough to make me step closer, despite every rational thought in my head. I could feel her, just an inch away, the warmth radiating from her body, the faint scent of coffee and rain still clinging to her. My fingers brushed hers, accidental, or maybe not. The world contracted around us, the wet pavement, the streetlights, the soft hum of the city, all irrelevant. And then, before either of us could move further, she stepped back, her eyes wide, chest rising and falling rapidly. My pulse was deafening. We were suspended on the edge of something we couldn't unsee, couldn't unfeel. I opened my mouth, but no words came. She did the same. And in that pause, that tiny, impossible beat between breaths, I knew the next move, hers or mine, would change everything. I thought I understood the rules, what we could risk, what we couldn't. But the moment the message arrived, the ground beneath me shifted like water. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I already knew, before opening it, that something had changed. Her name flashed on the screen, but not her words. Someone else's. Someone I hadn't expected. I swiped. He saw you with him. Everything's out now. I froze, the message burning through me faster than the rain could wash the night away. Saw me? No. Saw her with me. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. My mind raced, the quiet intimacy of the past few days colliding with the sharp, jagged reality. I couldn't breathe. Not properly. Not until I saw her. She was there, leaning against the counter, hair mussed, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and guilt. Her hand hovered near her chest, fingers trembling. She hadn't expected me to read the message, and now it was like the air had turned heavy between us, thick and hard. I didn't think, she started, but her voice faltered. I shook my head, words catching in my throat. Who saw us? She hesitated, then exhaled sharply, as if letting go of something too heavy to carry alone. My son. He came home early. He saw us together. It was like someone slammed a door in my chest. The protective little bubble we'd been nurturing, careful touches, fleeting glances, whispered confessions, shattered. I wanted to yell, to storm out, to make her choose, but none of it seemed fair. None of it seemed enough to fix what had been broken in an instant. Her eyes filled with that quiet pleading I'd learned to read like a map. "It's not what you think," she said, almost a whisper. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. But it had, and the stakes had shifted. There was no turning back. I swallowed, feeling anger, fear, and longing all tangled together. My hands itched to reach for her, to steady her, but I also wanted to back away, to give her room to breathe, to protect myself from the whirlwind of everything I wanted but couldn't yet claim. "I don't know what to say," I admitted, voice tight. I thought, maybe we were careful enough. But now, her fingers brushed mine, tentative, fragile, yet impossible to ignore. "I don't want to lose this," she whispered, though the words came out shaky, like a confession and a plea rolled into one. I caught her wrist lightly, not to hold her back, but to anchor myself. The pull between us, desire, fear, guilt, everything unspoken, was sharper than ever. I wanted to tell her it was fine, that none of it mattered, that we could survive the fallout. But the truth was, nothing had ever mattered this much. And then, before either of us could move, the sound of the front door opening downstairs echoed through the apartment. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, impossible to ignore. We froze, our hands still brushing, the air between us electric. Someone was coming up. Someone who could change everything. And suddenly, what had felt impossible before now seemed downright reckless. The apartment was quiet now, the storm outside reduced to a faint drizzle against the windows. My hands still tingled from the brief brush of hers earlier, the memory of her warmth refusing to let me think clearly. I paced, running my fingers through my hair, trying to sort out everything. The message, the exposure, the thrill, the guilt, but it was useless. She came out of the bedroom, barefoot, wrapped in a cardigan that smelled faintly of vanilla and rain. Her eyes met mine, wide and unguarded, and I felt something crack inside me. The fear, the obsession, the longing, all tangled together until I couldn't tell where one ended and another began. I shouldn't have let it happen," she whispered. Her voice trembled just enough to make me falter. "I didn't plan for this. I didn't think it would." "You didn't plan for me," I interrupted softly. The words surprised even me. I wanted to pull her close, to erase the hesitation in her eyes, but I paused. I had to hear her, really hear her, before I did anything reckless. Her lips parted, and for a moment, I saw the truth she had been carrying. The longing, the regret, the desire to be reckless and safe at the same time. I can't promise there won't be consequences," she said, almost like a warning to herself as much as to me. "I don't care," I said, voice low, almost a whisper. "I just want this. You. Us. Even if it's messy, even if it's wrong in 100 ways, I don't care." She swallowed hard, biting her lip, and then, just for a heartbeat, she let herself step closer. Our fingers intertwined, hesitant at first, then firmer, as if clinging to something fragile and precious. I could feel her pulse through her skin, and it made my chest ache in a way that words could never fix. "I shouldn't," she murmured again. And then, quieter, "But I want this too." That admission, simple and trembling, cut through everything. Fear, guilt, past regrets. It didn't erase the complications, didn't promise ease or safety, but it made the choice undeniable. We stayed like that for a long moment, staring at each other, the air thick with everything unspoken. No sudden moves, no cinematic gestures, just two people, vulnerable and alive, holding onto the fragile tether they dared to create. Finally, I leaned just enough to brush my forehead against hers. She closed her eyes, and a shiver ran through both of us. It wasn't a kiss, not yet, but it was enough to burn the memory into my bones. The front door downstairs creaked, reminding us the world still existed beyond this apartment, beyond the tension we'd been suspended in. I pulled back slightly, our hands still clasped, our breaths mingling. We have to be careful," she said softly, voice still trembling. "I know," I replied, "but I don't want to walk away from this. From you." She gave a small, fragile nod, and in that gesture, I understood everything. The risks, the longing, the messiness of it all, and that somehow it was worth it. The rain tapped gently against the windows, a quiet soundtrack to the tension between us. And though nothing was simple, though consequences still waited downstairs, one thing was clear: we had chosen each other. For now. The morning came slowly, pale sunlight spilling through the blinds and dusting the apartment in a soft, forgiving glow. Outside, the city was waking, indifferent to the small, fragile victories that had happened inside. I sat on the edge of the sofa, hands still intertwined with hers, tracing the delicate rhythm of her fingers like it was the only truth I could hold on to. She brewed coffee quietly, the familiar ritual, grounding us both. The aroma filled the room, blending with the faint scent of rain that still clung to her hair. We didn't speak much, no need to. The silence was full, not empty, carrying the weight of everything we'd survived: exposure, fear, desire, and the messy, human choices that had brought us here. She handed me a mug, her fingers brushing mine just enough to make me flinch and smile at the same time. Her eyes met mine, calm now, softened by sleep and quiet understanding. "I didn't think we'd get here," she said, voice low, almost like a confession. I shook my head, leaning back slightly, letting the warmth seep in. "Neither did I admitted. But maybe we were meant to." Her laugh was small, genuine, and I felt it loosen something tight in my chest. "You make it sound so easy," she teased, though the corners of her eyes crinkled with the memory of nights like last night. Tense, reckless, and impossible to forget. "It's not easy," I said honestly, "but it's real. And I want something real." She looked at me then, really looked, and I saw it all. The longing she'd tried to bury, the regrets that had once weighed her down, the quiet obsession I'd noticed from the start. "Real can be dangerous," she whispered. "And messy." "I'll take it," I replied without hesitation, because I had learned that life was too short to measure every risk before you dared to leap. For a long moment, we simply sat, watching the sunlight move across the floorboards, our hands still clasped. There was no grand declaration, no cinematic embrace, only the quiet, human acknowledgement that we had chosen each other, fully and recklessly, with all the consequences that would inevitably follow. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. Outside, the city called with its noise and errands and obligations, but inside the apartment, there was a fragile, golden bubble of possibility. A slow, uncertain beginning that was ours alone. I reached across, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. She didn't flinch. I smiled, and she returned it with that small, knowing expression that had captivated me from the start. We didn't need to say the words yet. The choice had been made. The tension, the fear, the longing, they were still there, but now tempered with something stronger: trust, connection, the quiet thrill of being seen and choosing to be seen back. And as we sat there, sipping coffee and listening to the city hum beneath us, I realized one thing: some stories don't end neatly. They linger, soft and persistent, like the memory of a touch, a whispered warning, or the taste of danger we've chosen to keep. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?